2 years I've been in office to try and follow through on those promises. First, a commitment to find more effective ways to hold people who commit crime accountable than what had been done in the past. Second, a promise to dramatically expand victim services, including language access. And third, a commitment to be independent and to enforce laws equally, not just to look the other way when those in power committed crimes or corruption. We have been living with the effects of racist rhetoric, scapegoating, and xenophobia that were driven by the highest levels of American government. And we have tried everything in our power to respond to and to prevent what in some ways were the inevitable reaction to a president who was encouraging racist attacks on Chinese Americans. And so I've made it a priority since day one to increase the number of Chinese language staff, not just in victim services, but across the office, paralegals, investigators, and lawyers. When I took over, we had a single victim advocate who spoke Cantonese, one person, to serve all of our diverse communities in San Francisco that speak Chinese. Now we have more than 5 victim advocates, including the first ever chief of victim services, who is not only a Chinese American, but who is fully conversational, if not fluent, in both Cantonese and Mandarin. Now, we know that in San Francisco, the history of racism and attacks on our Chinese community are as old as this city. We know that the very first Chinese to arrive in California, the folks who built our railroads, who did so much for the economic and cultural and culinary infrastructure of this city and of the entire country, were discriminated against, were brutalized. They built a Chinatown precisely, the country's oldest Chinatown, precisely to defend themselves against those attacks and those exclusionary policies. We have seen over the last 150 years a continuation in different forms of racism, of exclusion, of hatred. And in the last 2 years, it has surged. Because of that, we've taken an aggressive stance in my office to find more effective ways to hold people accountable. It's included a dedicated, full-time hate crimes expert prosecutor who works in partnership with other Bay Area counties and who's led trainings, more than a dozen, for community groups to educate about what hate crimes are, how to report them, how to prevent them, and also has done trainings for the San Francisco Police Department, because the cases we prosecute are only as strong as the evidence police bring us. And that's one of the reasons why we developed a little card about the size of a cell phone that every officer can carry in their breast pocket. And it has the kinds of questions and evidence that we need to be able to file hate crimes charges. Now, I know that the Chinese community, particularly our elders, have been living in fear, have seen videos of horrific, unprovoked violence. It keeps me up at night. My own parents are ill. My own mother just passed away a couple days ago. I know how important it is to protect our elders. I know how much we all respect and love our parents. I've never felt it more dearly than in the days after my own mother passed. And so when I hear from communities that are living in fear, that they don't trust their safety when they leave their home, I know how much work we have to do. And I will not rest until everybody in San Francisco is safe. That's why I partnered with Self-Help for the Elderly, for example, to get free Ring cameras distributed to elder Chinese Americans so they can have security in their own homes. I know we have work to do, and I'm asking you to allow me to finish the job you elected me. Since the very beginning of my administration, I have been proactive about communicating with the Chinese community in particular. We have a monthly show on Tsingtao. We have had, during much of the pandemic, we did weekly press roundtables specifically for the Chinese language press. We've significantly increased the number of Chinese-speaking staff in the office so that we can be more present at community events. Of course, with any new administration, there's going to be some turnover. You have to bring in new people. We promised to make change. I had to make space to hire more Chinese-speaking staff, for example. That was something that was a necessary part of the transition and the ability to fulfill the promises I made to voters. And since then, there's been higher turnover than I would like, but consistent with the office turnover in 2018 and 2019. There was tremendously high turnover in the years before my administration. It's a difficult job. It's not for everybody. And it's gotten more difficult during the pandemic.
So first, I really have to say, Chesa, you've done an amazing job in 2 years. People in the office is your biggest enemy, because there's a lot of people who's in the office for a long time who don't want change. And they are always the one to sabotage you. So the hatred and the fear, people are looking for scapegoat. People are looking for a simple reason. And Chesa becomes the simple reason. I mean, let's just say the fear and the anti-Asian hate that we are all experiencing, it is ridiculous to say this is all Chesa. We know that. We all take responsibility. We meaning, first of all, the government could do a much better job. From the federal level, state level, the mayor, the police chief, all takes responsibility. So to lump it on Chesa, it is wrong, pure wrong. I think the second thing I want to say is I have an opportunity to be in contact with the pro-recall people. And they remind me so much of the Chinese Tea Party. And it's the same kind of people and the same kind of philosophy. And I remember when the first appearance or the reappearance of the Chinese Tea Party type in the 90s, I was on the board of supervisors. They did exactly the same tactic, right? They threatened to recall me. And they would use these really threatening action to threaten people at that time who continue to support me. They are against Black people. They are against other immigrants. They are against gay marriage. They are against everything that we believe in an inclusive community. And they are against poor people. They want to lock them all up. That's not the solution. So, because recall is not a democratic debate, it's not a democratic process. And if we submit to that kind of threatening tactics, they can easily use their minority power to disrupt democracy. That is the danger of the Chinese Tea Party. So I just want to frame how I'm looking at this current recall effort. It's extremely dangerous. It's really dangerous to democracy, to having a reasonable discussion. They came and heckled the opening of Edge on the Square. They heckled us on Thursday. They heckled us on Saturday. It's a community celebration, and they are willing to disrupt the communities coming together. And it just took, there was only 3 of them. Only 3 of them. And they sound like they are the majority, but they have no base. I don't see their base. They have no faces. They have no name, except, for the 3 people that's out there yelling. No elected official today have supported the recall. 0, not even the mayor. Not even people who don't like Chesa. They're not supporting Proposition H.
The DA is pursuing a lot of cases, right? A lot of hate crime cases, a lot of other cases. But I thought I'd look at these Asian victim cases. And just in summary, of the 19 cases that I looked at, they are pursuing 9 hate crime cases against suspects. And of those 9 cases, there are 49 felony charges, not misdemeanors, 49 collectively. And his office has added 51 hate crimes enhancement. So there is no evidence that he's going easy against anti-Asian hate crimes. And then we've witnessed all these tragic murders of the Thai grandfather, of the 94-year-old Asian grandma who was actually killed before he came into office. And those are murders. There are 6 murder cases or attempted murder cases. And there is no evidence that the police investigators or DA investigators can identify to be hate crime. And as painful as it may be to the family of the Thai grandfather, this DA cannot put hate crimes enhancement on that case. Because, if he did, he would be laughed out of court. He just has to pursue the murder charges or attempted murder charges against those 6 suspects. And he's doing what he's supposed to be doing. And then, so those are 9 hate crime cases. So I just don't see any evidence that he's walking away from these cases that involve victims in the Asian and Chinese community. So I just don't find that the recall campaign is telling the truth. And when we look at the police data, in 2019, the year before he took office, there were 57,800 reported crimes in San Francisco to the police department. In 2021, there was 50,300 reported crimes to the police department. So there's been a drop in crime. Now, 50,000 is not good, but we cannot say that the way that he has tried to prosecute laws has encouraged more crimes. The data doesn't support the recall. He is doing his job.